Hello and welcome to a new episode of Controller Club, the friendly face gaming space, a podcast where three friends from three continents share in one love, and that is video games. On today's show, Cordyceps Club continues as we review episode 3 of The Last of Us TV show. My name is Kleinfeld, and alongside me today are two of my best friends in the whole wide gaming world, as well as a very special guest. I cannot wait to get to all of that. First, coming to us from across the pond, it is the digital art daredevil himself, Tom Drew. Tom, it looks sunny over there. What's going on? How are things?
Yeah, I don't know what happened over the past week, but the UK is very well known for being cold and depressing. But woke up today, bright blue skies, really warm. So I guess summer's officially here. This is very exciting development in the world of Tom this week. So I feel good. I feel really good this week.
Next up, it is journalist extraordinaire, the Australian abroad, aka the Canadian in training. I'm sure the weather talk is just super interesting. Lauren Rouse, what's going on out there? Pouring rain, I'm sure. Springtime is here.
Yeah, I'm experiencing the exact opposite to Tom, where I thought that I was in summer and then woke up this morning to it raining. But all weekend it was beautiful and sunny. I went to the beach. It was great. I got a bit sunburnt even. I hadn't seen the sun in like 6 months, so of course I'm way more susceptible to that. But yeah, now it's back to raining. So that's Vancouver.
Experiencing all sides of the coin when it comes to Vancouver weather. And lastly today, but not leastly, of course, we have a very special guest joining us, friend of the show, a fellow Canuck. We love to see it. Last of Us superfan. It is the movie podcast's very own Daniel Baptista. Daniel, how are you? How are things? Welcome to Controller Club. We are so happy to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. It is an honor to be here. Obviously, after the heartbreak that we all had last week, it's nice to have some nice weather here. But hopefully, the sun will come over to Vancouver for you guys very soon. Because yeah, it's been a hard week living after episode 2 of The Last of Us.
I know. I missed last week's episode. I am back. Had to binge both this episode 3 and 2 back to back last night. And let me tell you, I'm happy I had some, like, not the happiest thing in the world, but something, some semblance of brightness coming off of
Like a
episode 2.
cushion.
If I had to sit with that for a week, I would not have been a happy camper. But Daniel, we want to ask you, as we do with all of our guests here on the show, bit of an icebreaker. What is one game to get to know Daniel Baptista? What is the one game that you would say for fans listening that you could, shed a little light on who you are?
It's a great question, and when you told me that this is a question you're going to ask, I'm like, I need to have like the most coolest answer ever. But honestly, one of the games that just I always think about, it's the game that I'll always purchase whenever it's available, like on a virtual console or Nintendo Switch Online, wherever it is. It's Super Mario World. That's just a game that I will always open up. It is always the game that I will test on whatever system or whatever Nintendo system I'm playing. It brought me so much joy growing up playing that on Super Nintendo and then on the Game Boy Advance. And then from there, it is the game that I've played everywhere. That whatever system I'm on, I'm like, I need to have a copy of this. I need to be able to play this wherever I'm going. And I just picked up a physical copy of it, like the Japanese copy of it, when I was in Japan last week. So that was like my first thing that I looked for when I was in the game shops there. I'm like, I need to own a Japanese like Super Famicom version of this. And yeah, it's still a game that I think holds up so well today, and I will play it any chance I get.
Is it the best Mario? Do you think so?
I think the best 2D Mario. I think there's an argument for it, 100%. But yeah, I just think it's especially the Super Mario Advance version of that game. I think it's fantastic. Yeah,
You heard it here first. You know where to go. The movie podcast. If you think Super Mario Brothers 3 might be better than Mario World, direct all those comments over there because
come slide into the DMs. Don't worry, I will stake my flag in it. I will back it up.
Okay, it is time to move away from one Mushroom Kingdom to, I guess, another Mushroom Kingdom of sorts, into the world of
Great
The
segue.
Last of Us. Talk
Great
about a
segue.
segue. Lauren Rouse, take it
Amazing.
away. Last of Us season 2, episode 3. Let's do this thing.
Wow, I don't know how to follow up to that. Okay. Cordyceps Club, we're back. Episode 3. This one is titled The Path. It is written by, I forgot to check. I think it's written by Craig. Mason, and directed by Peter Hoa, who also directed episode 3 of last season. So we've got a returning director here. Before we get into my big breakdown of events, as always, we just want to start with some general spoiler-free impressions. And Klein, seeing as we didn't hear from you last week, did you want to give your impressions of perhaps 2 and 3 back to back here?
Sure. I will be quick with 2 because you guys did a great job on the episode talking about all that. It's just emotional devastation. They did it. They accomplished a thing. And I will say, I just want to give the internet some credit. People taking it way better than I thought they were going to. Coming off when the game came out, the world had ended. People were very upset. When this happened, I had people like, yeah, it's just like the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones. This is nothing new for us TV audiences. Gamers, take a page out of their books because we could be better off if you did. Episode 3, though, I thought it was really good. I think that this is probably what I would say is not the weakest, but my least favorite of the 3 so far. It does feel very much like an in-between. Got some great moments here in the episode. A few moments where I'm like, whoa, like this is beautiful filmmaking. But I'm excited to see where we're going. This kind of felt like the appetizer before we really dive into like the meal that is going to be like the second half of this season.
Very true. And Daniel, we haven't heard from you or your thoughts at all on this season. So how has the beginning of Last of Us season 2, how are you finding it? And in particular, how are you finding this episode?
I'm loving season 2. Obviously, Last of Us Part 2 is one of my favorite game experiences of all time. Thinking back to when that came out 5 years ago, and it's so surreal to be like already speaking it in a different, lens, like when it's not just a game anymore, like we're actually adapting the story for the screen. I think they're doing a great job with season 2 so far. It's really interesting to see the changes that are being made for this season. We didn't like, obviously there was a lot of changes that we had in the first season of the show, but I think it's really in season 2 that we're starting to see a lot more adjustments to character pairings, to times between like events happening. So it's kind of throwing me for a little bit of a loop, and being such a fan of the games as we all are here. So it's been really fun to see that, because it's also keeping us on our toes a little bit more, because we don't always know the sequence of events that's going to be happening, that's going to unfold on the show. The destination may be the same, but the journey that we get there is going to be different. But I definitely think, like Klein said, I think this episode really is the tee up before, stuff really starts to pop off in the coming episodes of the season.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you're saying, exactly what you're saying about the changes that they're making. The destination is the same, but the pieces when they're moving can sometimes feel a little unnerving. And Tom and I spoke about this at length in our episode 2 review, where it's sort of like, as fans, we were a bit like, did we like that? But then it's hard to know without the full picture, right? Because something that they've changed here might actually end up for the better somewhere else. And I have to say, last week I left the episode feeling I wasn't sure about the TV show. I was a bit like, do I like this? And I have to say, I've had a chance to rewatch episode 2 and obviously now watch episode 3. And I'm back. I'm back on board. I'm okay with it. I've had time and space to reflect on the trauma that was episode 2. And I think that distance really helped with accepting it as an episode of TV for what it was. And that things are going to change, and the game is going to be one thing, the TV show is going to be another, and you just have to be okay with that. And particularly, I'm also playing the game at the same time as the show, so those changes are obviously really present in my mind, but taking it as 2 different experiences is kind of just, I think, what you have to do. So yeah, back on with the show, particularly after this episode, which I think was a huge departure, as season 1 episode 3 was. It was filling in some blanks that we never got to see, and fleshing out these moments and these characters, and giving, I think, episode 2 a bit of space, a bit of breathing room, which I liked. So we'll get into the events, but Tom, over to you. What are your general impressions of the episode?
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear that like it kind of this episode reaffirmed like your enjoyment of the show, and I'm really glad for that. But I think I might have gone the opposite way actually, and I'm a bit more conflicted about it. I'm not saying I dislike the show or dislike the episode necessarily, but some of the changes, like definitely, I'm like, we're gonna have to wait and see how they shake out, because I think some of them they kind of just change the framing of the show and the season as a whole. and it's just going to be a case of like waiting to see what happens, because we all know what happens in the story of the game, so we know what to kind of hope for and expect. So not kind of knowing that is a kind of daunting. But then there are also other things that I think, just the way that that some of the themes are handled, I think I'm not the biggest fan of at the moment. I think, similar to you, Lauren, with like how you revisited episode 2, I think I might have to like go back and rewatch the show once it's all out, once it's all over, because yeah, I think there are some things that I'm definitely preferring of how part 2 as a game just handled thematically, and how it handled it as a story. And there's some changes just fundamentally I'm like, I'm not really sure, and I'm not fully gelling with. But again, like, we don't have the full picture. We'll see. But yeah, as a whole, episode 3, I think I enjoyed it overall. But yeah, I think it's definitely the weakest episode of the season so far.
All right, well, let's talk about what happened. As usual, I'll give a bit of a plot breakdown and then we can stop and talk about some of the significant moments. I'll get your guys' opinions on things. So the episode begins with Tommy, who learns of his brother's death. We see him crying over Joel's body, and also that Joel's body is just one of many in this room. They had quite a few casualties in the town from the attack with the infected. And as he's sort of like washing up Joel's body, he says, give Sarah his love. So right off the bat, we're crying. It's great. And then straight away, we jump ahead 3 months later. It's springtime. Jackson is in the middle of rebuilding itself. Ellie is in the process of being discharged from the hospital. After last week, she was like kicked in the ribs and quite heavily injured. And they're ready to let her go on the basis that she can pass a psych test with Gail. And Ellie essentially does this by lying to Gail and telling her that all the things that she wants to hear, that yes, she misses Joel, yes, she regrets not making peace with him, she isn't going to punish herself. And Gail more or less buys it and allows her to leave. But then very quickly, once Ellie leaves the room, we see this mask drop, and she is actually very much not fine with what's going on here. And so Ellie's first stop is at Joel's house, and she, again, similar to the game, wanders around the empty rooms. She finds these odds and ends of things that Joel, was in the process of completing before his death. She finds his jacket and begins to cry into it. I also cried into my jacket. I think the person next to me was crying. We're all crying, haven't stopped crying. And then Dina interrupts this moment. She's arrived downstairs to bring Ellie cookies as a peace offering because she's about to make her angry, because she's been withholding this information that she knows the names of the people who killed Joel and she knows where they're from. So after Ellie has this information, she goes and takes it to Tommy. And immediately she wants Tommy on her side. She wants them to get out there and chase these people and kill them for what they did to Joel. And Tommy supports her on this quest, but he wants to take it to Maria and the council first. He needs their approval. They need to put together a proper team to get this done. So this is the beginning of the episode. And like I mentioned, it's quite different to the game, because really when we pick up in the game, Joel dies, cut to Ellie at Joel's grave, a bit of a mourning period, and then she and Dina are preparing to go. They didn't even really go through this process of like not having the information about who Joel's killers were and things like that. So thoughts on this change? Daniel, we'll start with you.
It's an interesting one, because again, like I think already jumping the 3 months that's a lot of time. When in the game, it feels like this is something that happens like a few days later. So to have like, no, okay, we're going to buy some time. We're going to go to the council. I like the idea of the council in this town, obviously, and that's great for the democracy of it all. But also, we're angry and we want revenge. And again, another change with Tommy being kind of like the Lone Ranger in the game, who kind of goes off on his own, and it's Ellie and it's Dina who kind of go and chase after him and go to Seattle. So some interesting changes. Tommy's a little bit more of a level-headed presence in the show, where in the game he's a lot more of a hothead. So, or at least reacting a little bit more like a brother would, where obviously Tommy has a family. He's reacting a little bit more level-headed this time around. But interesting change. I think seeing Ellie after 3 months, I think it's funny, because like it almost feels like for her, so much of that 3 months I don't even know, like, does she even realize like how much time it's been, right? But it's just, you just feel like she wants to go out and get her vengeance, and we're losing a little bit of, like, I guess, the trail, and I think that's where she's feeling that anger right now at Dina.
What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I sort of feel like this was my kind of, I guess, biggest gripe with this episode is that kind of change with the time frame. Because yeah, like in the game, it does feel like you are propelled on this quest, and like the part of that is like part of the game is like the immediacy of how you're just thrust into that. And you're not even necessarily like questioning like the right or wrong. You just want to like you want to take revenge. You're on Ellie's side. You want to like do this thing, and I feel like because they have this kind of this time gap, you kind of lose a bit of the momentum, and also you're then met with these other questions of like, reckoning with like, is this right, is this wrong, which I think are valid questions, but I wonder like if we needed this at this point of the show. I feel like, for me at least, the kind of the thing that I really liked about part two is that like you see Ellie do all these actions and you go on this revenge quest, um, and you're not even really thinking about all these other moral quandaries, all these, not to the extent that you are like by the end of the game. So when you are confronted with these things later on, I think it is a bit of like a watershed moment. So I think it's an interesting way of like framing it, like doing a lot of this stuff up front, and I'm wondering like how people who aren't familiar with the game at all are kind of reacting to it. I wonder if they're like, yeah, this is like welcome. I think it's an interesting exploration of the theme. But for me, I'm wondering like, I'm not sure if I gel with just the way they've kind of framed things up to this point with this kind of time jump and that sort of stuff.
I think too, with knowing Abby's motives up to this point as well, where in the games we don't know why she did what she did to Joel, but that's obviously something that's revealed much later in the games, but obviously no future spoilers. But it's interesting that because we know her motive already, it's almost just like, well, Ellie, like, you're going on this quest for revenge, but because we already know why Abby did what she did, you're just kind of just like, yeah, but like also we get why she did what she did too, right? So it's almost like we're being pulled in both directions, and we're in the show, we're given a lot more empathy for Abby, where we don't get that at all in the games as this early.
That's true. You're questioning the path, so to speak, right from the get go in the show. Whereas in the game, because you're in that forced perspective, you are just on Ellie's side until obviously the switch. I hear what you're saying, Tom, and I agree. But I also think this is one of those moments where the medium has just really forced this change, where in the game, because it's a game, you can't sit there and revel in this moment and have a bunch of cutscenes and wander around, Jackson for an hour. You just have to get going. So they really had to be like economical with that and make it like happen quicker. Whereas in the TV show, I think there is room for that like character building, and you really need to understand every piece up until the point of going, because you're not actually in Ellie's shoes, you're just watching. So I think that was just a shift in medium, that they took this opportunity to expand the decision making behind all of that, and obviously make a few changes, which is going to have probably ripple effects, but we can talk about that in a bit. Klein, your thoughts?
My only like thing that I'll say that's different here is that I do think I see where you're coming from, Tom. I think I like it though, because it almost recontextualizes the journey that we're about to go on with Ellie just a little bit. In The Last of Us Part 2, when she decides, no, I have to go murder these people, I need my retribution, I need justice. It is this like almost unstoppable, like brash decision that she goes on, and then and that snowball just like starts rolling and does not stop rolling. Whereas with this 3-month gap, it almost changes it to like, no, she's now sat with this and I'm sure that hate was there on day one, but she has had to, we see the moment before it cuts to the 3 months where she is, what it was from the trailer where we thought it was the moment of Joel actually being killed, but it's her waking up in the hospital bed and freaking out. Like, she's now had to deal with 3 months of that, and knows that if she doesn't do something, she's going to have to deal with that for the rest of her life. And I'm sure there were ups and downs, and that hate came and went in those 3 months a few different times. But every time she was woken up by a nightmare, thought of Joel, did anything like that, had some sort of like PTSD episode, she came back to that, no, I have to go do this. And so now it's like as formulated a plan as I think Ellie is ever going to get. Like we come to the moment in a few minutes with Dina showing up at the house and asking all these questions, and she was ready to go, but like she's thought about this now for 90 days and has really no, this is what I have to do. I don't know why I have to do it. I don't know why she was here to kill Joel, but like this is why we have to go. And so I think that kind of like it does change the context of this journey that we're about to go on a little bit. And I am interested to see if they play with that as we get moving forward.
Yep. So after this moment, we go straight into this council meeting, which is basically being pulled together for the town to vote on whether they should go and send a group, I think, of 16 people to avenge Joel and kill the people that killed him. We also learn that Jesse is on the council now. He's got a promotion, and everybody in the town who wants to say something is allowed to say something. And it's clear that the people are conflicted because they're scared of losing more people to essentially this plight of vengeance. They've already lost so much. Their town is in disarray. They aren't as committed to this quest as Ellie, and it's one of those moments where it's like life stopped for Ellie in that moment in episode 2, but it kept going for everyone else. And that's quite clear in this whole scenario. But basically, quite a few people speak up saying they don't want it to happen. And then Seth, homophobic Seth, gets up to say his piece. And he says that these people need to pay. Otherwise, they're only going to keep coming back and taking more from them. And then Ellie also gets to say, and she has written down her speech on a piece of paper. And she tells the town that this isn't a quest for vengeance, it's a quest for justice. And she goes on a little bit. Her speech is quite passionate, but we all know that it's not reflecting what she's really feeling. And it's also not enough to convince the council, who then vote no to the proposal, 8 votes against 3. So it's a resounding no. This was interesting. We never got to see the council in action in Jackson. Does anyone have any thoughts on seeing this on screen?
I think seeing Jesse there was nice, but also it was one of those things I'm like, oh, is Jesse's now there? As you know, obviously they've lost people because that the horde attacking Jackson is also something new to the series. But I really like that Jesse also told Ellie to like, listen, you're going to be coming in front of a council. He knows who Ellie is, how off the cuff she could be, and he's like, make sure you write something down. And I think that was some good advice, because what Ellie said in front of the council was really refined, because
Yes.
obviously it's very easy to go off the deep end, and rightly so, but I really liked her message there.
And it's also nice because she has a journal in the game that she writes in, so that hasn't really become too present in the show this yet, and I felt like maybe this was like a slight nod to that, to make her write something. Or she writes lyrics, and yeah, she journals as well. Yeah, anything else, Klein or Tom?
Yeah, I really liked the just around the performances in this scene. Like I thought they were all very strong. Like homophobic Seth, he had a great speech. Ellie's speech was really great. Even the corn guy had a like
It's
a good
not
little
corn. It's a
rant
much
there.
better
The
crop.
corn guy.
Yeah, he's a bit of a meme, but yeah, I even though I feel like I didn't necessarily need this scene, I did kind of appreciate this kind of like that we were getting a bit more of a perspective of how the town feels about this decision. Because yeah, like we don't get this in the game, so yeah, I like the scene overall.
Can I ask a quick question to anyone who wants to answer? Do you think, of the named characters we know on the council, so I guess it'd be Maria, Tommy, and Jesse, we have 3 yeses. Do you think any of those 3 were yes?
I think Tommy was.
You
I think
do?
Tommy
'Cause
was. I
or
think
has
Tommy was the
Tommy
only yes.
has Tommy decided, he's like, you can try and go do this, we have to go through the council, but I can also see Tommy thinking like, no, I have to protect you now. Like Joel's gone.
Yeah.
Like I know how destructive you can be.
Yeah, I feel like in any which way, I think they knew that vote was not going to pass. So maybe Tommy, if it was Tommy, maybe he voted yes for his own conscience, for feeling like he's not gonna betray Ellie in that moment. But if there's any yeses on there, I'm like, even Jesse, I could see Jesse not voting yes, because it didn't feel like he was like wanting to vote yes when he spoke to her the night before. But yeah,
Hmm.
but it is interesting though, of the three people that we know and are close to Ellie, like there are three of them who voted yes.
I personally took it as all three of them as yes.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why. I just assumed that they would all support Ellie no matter what because they cared about her. I see your point though about Tommy potentially. Maybe he's a secret no. And I have a theory about that later. But anything to add, Tom?
Yeah, not really. I mean, like the only thing is, yeah, Tommy, like because his betrayal in this episode is so different from how we see him at this point in part two. I could really see it going either way. Like to me, the impression I got was that he really was kind of almost like verging on at peace with, like, Joel's gone. We shouldn't really mess with this. But I wonder if that spirals and maybe this new information has got him changing his mind. So yeah, I could go either way. Maybe it's all no's, maybe it's all yeses. Like honestly, I could see it. Like any interpretation, I could see either way.
Well, let's say it was a yes and they have to pick the 16 people to send. Do we think Tommy is one of those?
Well, that's the hard. Like he's in charge, right? Like
He has a
he's the
kid.
head honcho. He has a kid. He has Maria. Like, is Maria letting him go? He would probably want to be on that crusade because it's his brother. But
Mm.
I don't know. And I think one of the reasons he may have also said no is because if he had said yes, he maybe knows that he would almost like feel forced to like get roped into that.
Definitely.
Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely a different version of Tommy in the show. Okay, after this, Tommy actually goes straight to Gail because he knows that the resounding no from the vote, he's worried that Ellie is probably just going to go ahead and do something stupid anyway. And Gail basically tells him that she can tell that Ellie's been lying this entire time through the speech, through her discharge. Like, she's been lying about how she's really feeling. And she tells him that violence is just in her nature. Nurture can only do so much. And she thinks that Joel and Ellie were the same in that aspect. They were walking down this road at the same time. And after this, we see that Ellie is planning to do something stupid. She's stockpiled weapons, she's preparing to go after Abby, and in particular, she has Joel's gun and is ready to kill Abby with it, which is what she tells Dina, who arrives with an actual plan. And Dina reminds Ellie that she loves Joel too and that they're in this together. So she's gone ahead and organized a route to Seattle. She's made arrangements for supplies, and she tells Ellie to be ready to go at 3 a.m. So cut to 3 a.m. Dina meets Ellie at the gate along with her inside man, who is none other than homophobic Seth. And Ellie has this moment where she agrees to trade her rifle for Seth's better one. And they kind of come to this begrudging kind of peace where she agrees to shake his hand. And then they're at the gate. They're off to Seattle. And one last scene before they go to Seattle is that they make a stop at Joel's grave, which Tommy had told Ellie was like 10 miles outside of town. And she just has this moment to say goodbye and she lays some coffee beans on the grave. Um, just quickly, some people in the room who are watching with me were confused about this. But yes, she does lay coffee beans, which is a tribute to Joel's love for coffee, which I think is brought up in episode like 4 or 5 in season 1. But we as game fans know that it also holds significance to a scene that may or may not happen in the show later, which refers to their last conversation together. But yeah, any thoughts on this little segment?
I thought this was when I said earlier stuff was shot beautifully. This specific, like this grave sequence was like with the sun coming down and the wheat fields, it's just perfect.
It's like the opening of the game, right? When you're riding the horse and the sun
Oh
is
my
coming
God,
down,
it's
as lens
beautiful.
flare. Yeah.
I think to Gail and Tommy's conversation, when she says, the road that Ellie's on, they were on that side by side, and seeing the opening credits for this episode and that
Oh,
last moment where Joel's figure is not there anymore, like it's only Ellie on this path now. I think it made that moment hit even more, and I felt like the lump in my throat, and seeing that, I'm like, man, like he's gone. He's not on this journey with her physically anymore. But again, really nice touch from the production team to update the title sequence to remove the little fungi version of Joel. But it made me think of that. We're like, yeah, they're definitely, they met each other, and I don't think Joel, obviously I think they made each other better, and there were things that brought out the worst in each other too, but the path that they were on was always the path that they were on.
Yeah, I remember people were saying, I saw on the internet last week being like, oh, I wonder if they'll like strike out Joel's figure in the credits. And then they did. And I was like,
Brutal.
no, this makes it hurt so much more. Horrible.
Yeah. The only other scene I wanted to mention was the scene between Ellie and Dina. Again, shout out to Isabel Merced, because I think
Their
she's just like
chemistry. Like,
they're
oh
so
my
good
god.
together.
Magic.
I think like it's every scene they're in, I think is amazing. But the change that they made with Dina being the one that was with Joel initially I was like, I'm not really sure about this change, because initially Tommy's the one in the game, but I actually think I like this a bit more. And they changed it because they felt like they needed Dina to have a bit more of a connection to Joel and more of a reason to go on this crusade with Ellie. And I didn't initially think we needed that kind of like reaffirmation of that of like any other need for her to go on this journey, but I do feel like having that context does add a little bit more zhuzh, for lack of a better term, to the show and to that relationship. So I really like that she just comes in. She's like, "Yep, I planned all this out. Clearly you don't know what you're doing." So, yeah, I really like that change to the show. I think it's like really welcome.
Anything else, Klein?
No, that's it. That's everything. Nailed it.
Okay, great. That's it. All right. So after this, road trip time. We get a montage of Ellie and Dina traveling across the country to Seattle. And in between all this, they pass the time by talking about, normal things, their favorite bands, their favorite artists, what their first kill was like, totally normal teenage things. And then later on, a storm hits and they take shelter in a tent. And before going to bed, Dina wants to ask Ellie about their kiss on New Year's Eve. And she asks Ellie to rate it, who gives it a 6, which does not impress Dina. And Ellie says, whatever, go back to Jesse then. And Dina says she already has. And then they have this discussion about whether Jesse is sad. And Ellie thinks that's just how Jesse is. And Dina's worried that she might be the problem if it isn't how he normally is. And then right before they turn the lights out, Dina says to Ellie that she wasn't that high during the kiss. So, Tom, we talked about this at length last week. We have a clip up now, because I'm back into clips on our Instagram and TikTok, about why they changed the weed den scene between Ellie and Dina, which happens traditionally before Joel's death in the game. And we get kind of hints of that conversation, I guess, here in this tent. It's not the full scene to the same extent, but some of the similar conversations are being had. Maybe it's the closest we are going to get to that scene. So, Tom, what do you think about this transition now that they've kind of brought this scene into this moment instead?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because we don't see any of that like in between part of them leaving Jackson, Seattle in the game. So I did like that we got a bit more of that journey towards Seattle. So I actually think this makes sense to bring forward. Like I don't think they necessarily needed it earlier on. And I think like having it now kind of makes there's a bit more of a build up in Ellie and Dina's relationship now. Rather than it being kind of like, okay, we've kind of they're together now almost. There is a bit more of like, okay, we're kind of building up to this, which I kind of like. I think it's and like I said, we don't get the full extent of this weed den scene in the original scene. There's the big makeout session basically that happens at the end of it. So that aspect I'm sure is probably going to come later in the show. So yeah, I think this is a nice little progression of their relationship and kind of building those characters up a bit more.
Yeah, I agree, because there's a lot that goes unsaid in the game about Ellie and Dina. You just kind of take it on face value. And I kind of like that they're like almost reverse engineering that here, so that we get to see it play out on screen. And it's more of like a slow burn. A bit of like the push pull of, will they, won't they? Does she like her? Does she not? So I'm actually kind of there for that. I'm here for like seeing their relationship develop on screen. What I'm not a huge fan of is Dina being like, oh, how would you rate the kiss? Because, you're gay, I'm not. And then proceeds to wear the gayest jacket I've ever seen. The entire episode has got a huge rainbow plastered on
She
it.
did finish that sentiment with "I'm curious." So,
We're not here for the
she's
bi-erasure, Klein. Anyway, so I hope that, that did sort of run me a little bit the wrong way, because I was like, but she's always, canonically being queer. And I know that's probably where they're going with her, and maybe she doesn't understand how to articulate those feelings. But
Right.
the point of, putting it down to her maybe just being curious, I wasn't a huge fan of, because that plays into some harmful tropes. But I think they will probably rectify that as it goes on.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out. And I'll never forgive them for removing Smash Brandy's Cooch or Smash Brandy Cooch. That's not in this show at all.
Yep.
Which was a great joke in the game. But it's interesting though, seeing the motive changes, right? Where we know that Ellie and Dina were already starting to get together before Joel's death. And now, because we've gone Dina and Joel being paired together so much in these first couple episodes, her going on this mission with Ellie's probably seeing it more as, well, her and Joel were obviously close, so that's why she's coming. And now we're seeing their relationship starting to blossom a little bit more in a different way. And she's, I guess, going to see oh, maybe she just didn't come for Joel's revenge. Maybe she's here because, she likes me too. But yeah, it's again, very interesting motive switches that we're getting on the series side.
Yeah, because it's not immediately clear how Dina feels about Ellie. So really the only thing we have to cling on is that she's going as a commitment to Joel. But even then, we saw some of their relationship, but that's a lot of stuff that's unsaid still. So yeah, I think it's playing out on two fronts. And I am quite excited at the thought of seeing how Ellie and Dina's relationship evolves into what it is in the game. But I still wonder what it's going to look like. Is it going to be as solidified as it was in the game, to that point? Or is it always going to be a little bit hesitant? Because so much happens that takes priority, I assume, in the plot, that I don't know where we're going to have time for some of these things.
Right.
I have a feeling that, no future spoilers, but I have a feeling that next week's episode, there may be some serenading that happens, and we've seen the trailers, okay? We've seen how Dina looks up at Ellie. It's all going to fall together very fast.
I hope so. All right. After this, we are going to take a segue, because in the middle of the episode, we actually cut away from Jackson and Ellie and Dina, and we get a look at a new group of Seraphites, or at least who we know to be as Seraphites as fans of the game. So what is shown is that this group is religious. They communicate through these high-pitched whistles, and they carry things like bows and arrows as opposed to guns. And we are learning this from a conversation between a man and his daughter, that they're traveling through the forest. They're leaving their home because they are fleeing war. And the girl's asking why their prophet can't protect them. And the man tells her that the prophet died 10 years ago, but she continues to live on through them, upholding her teachings. And then a new whistle sounds from the scout at the back of the group, and they immediately scatter into the woods. This whistle means danger, and they're hiding. And the girl asks, "Is it demons? What's coming for us?" And the man says, "Worse, like wolves." So this is our first introduction to the Seraphites, aka scars. I forgot to mention they all have scars on their faces, on their cheekbones, which is quite exciting as game fans, because we come across these guys quite a lot in part 2. So, Daniel, what did you think of the first impression of the Seraphites here?
Very surprised to see them this soon. But again, I like that we're going to be getting a lot more of who these, who this faction of characters are. It's something that we got a lot of them in part 2. We got a lot of encounters with them. But I'm really hoping that we're going to start to dive a little bit more into, I guess, the lore, and I guess the genesis of where they all kind of came from, because we didn't get that as much on the game side, and I'm hoping that there's a space to tell more of those stories. But I think it, like, when you're looking at adapting something right from the game, they look fantastic. They look exactly how you would want them to look, and they act, and the whistles there, and those are just like those little things. I'm so glad that this made it to this incarnation of the Seraphites, because again, that is so crucial to who they are in the games. But surprising to see them this early. But again, to see where it kind of goes in this episode is also okay, we're doing this.
To go off Daniel's point, I think that it's it's cool that we've seen them this early, and it's interesting to me that this is the first way we see them, that this is the light they're showing them to us for the first time. They're doing the very Last of Us Part 2 thing. I remember when that game was being marketed, where it's like everyone is the protagonist of their own story in this world. And so these characters show up for the first time and are instantly sympathetic to you based on the girl talking to the dad, some threats looming, and then boom, they scatter, and then we get the moment later in the episode with them. I almost I don't know, I was really looking forward to the introduction of the Scars because I find them to be more terrifying than the Infected. They are though just the whistling to me, I think is such a unique tool that these characters use. And so I was really hoping for them to show up. It'd be the first time Ellie and Dina are lurking around in the rainy Seattle in the dark somewhere, and you just hear a whistle and an arrow go flying by or something like that. And then it's like, whoa, like this is a new threat that we've never seen before. I hope we still get that, but seeing them sympathetic at first, I am worried that we're going to lean into the WLF are the big bad. They're the evil, and the Seraphites are like just kind of fighting against that. Whereas I think in The Last of Us Part 2 in the game, it is a little more complicated than that, where we spend a lot of time with the WLF in the game. We spend a lot of time with the Seraphites as well. And you kind of see this like back and forth push and pull. Whereas immediately from this first introduction, if have no idea who any of these characters are, you're like, oh, these are the good guys and the WLF are the bad guys. And whereas it's a little more gray than that in the game.
I think that will come. I think it will depend on how they play out the WLF's origins. I know we're going to see some more of Isaac this season. I don't know what they plan to do with him, but I wouldn't be surprised if the war between the WLF and Seraphites are set up earlier via Isaac.
I
and
just
also
want to
it'll
see scary
depend.
Seraphites. Like I want to be afraid of them. Whereas I
Again,
wasn't
I
afraid
think
of these guys. The little girl was cute.
yeah, definitely at this point they're being painted in a sympathetic light. But I think as soon as like if Ellie and Dina or Jesse come across them in this season and suddenly they're being hunted and see some of their methods, like what obviously happens to Abby in the game, I think we're going to change our opinion pretty quickly. But right now, I think we do need to paint the WLF as the enemy, and this is just like reinforcing that. Tom, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I really like how they were portrayed thus far. It is interesting because, yeah, like you guys have been saying, they are terrifying in the games, and like I'm sure we will see like how terrifying they can be, not just but like on an opponent's level, but yeah, some of the things that they do to other characters and within their own, which we'll get to as the show goes on. I think there'll definitely be a lot more of that like moral gray area of like and complexity of like where this group actually sits on that kind of scale. So yeah, I really like that they kind of are like portraying him this way because that kind of goes back to the idea of if you're positioning the WLF as the kind of quote unquote antagonist at the moment, that goes back to the idea of in part two of the game, like reaffirming to the audience that like these are the bad guys right now, focus on that. And then you can switch it up and then go more into the gray area and the complexity of it all later on the show. So yeah, I really liked this scene and just sucks it ended up the way that it does later in the episode.
Yeah, one more thing before we talk about that is I found it was interesting when the little girl asked for a hammer to keep herself safe, and the dad immediately like gave her one. And I was like, that's interesting because Ellie was constantly asking Joel for a gun, and he would never give her one. So I thought that was an interesting parallel. But it didn't really matter because after this, we find out that they all died. Ellie and Dina come across where they were on the path, and they look in the woods, and the entire group of Seraphites have just been brutally murdered. This makes Dina throw up, and it also makes Ellie angry because she thinks that if the WLF did this, like Abby's group, and they killed children, this was just more of a reason for us to make them pay for what they did. But anyway, they continue on to Seattle. They're passing deserted highways, and then finally they come across the Seattle skyline. And it's very quiet. The city looks almost abandoned, and Dina thinks that, hey, there mustn't be that many wolves after all. And Ellie, who's trying to sound like a badass, says, well, there's about to be a lot less. But before this, before the end of the episode, we cut over to Manny, who is one of Abby's group from the previous episode. He's hanging out in the Sky Needle. Is that what it's called?
Space Needle.
Space Needle. Thank you. We went up there, Klein. We were there. We
We
know what he
did.
was looking at.
We did. We
Yeah.
looked out there with the binoculars. We saw Ellie
Yeah.
and Dina out on that overpass.
We were basically in the show. Um, Anyway, and he's giving the all clear to one of the WLF patrols to move ahead. And then we see pretty quickly that the WLF is not as small as perhaps Dina thought they were. They have soldiers with rifles, they have tanks, and they have vehicles, and they're all moving down the streets of Seattle, which hints at quite a significant challenge to come. And that's the end of the episode. So I suppose now we had the first look at the Seraphites. Now we have a proper look at the WLF. How do we feel about how the WLF is being presented at the end of the episode here? Clint, start with you.
They're terrifying. Like we haven't seen, not since I guess really early in season 1 with some of the Fedra stuff in the QZ. We haven't seen like something with this much force in this post-apocalypse. It's mostly people trying to string things together, using what they have, very limited resources. Whereas you see these soldiers walking down the street with tanks, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, how is Ellie with Joel's little pistol and a rifle going to be able to take on this? So I think they did a great job of introducing them. It is a little weird for me, I know Vancouver so well, and this is one of the first shows I've watched in a long time, really since like the early Arrowverse days, where I'm like, I know exactly what street they're walking down right now, and it just was kind of hurting my brain just thinking about like where they were, and it's like it doesn't really look like that with the grass, and there's like buildings being plastered up with CG in the background and stuff. That was a little like, it almost took me out of it, and I think I'm gonna have a few more moments like that where I'm like, that corner doesn't, those streets don't meet up when someone turns a corner or whatever. But I thought that they're doing a really good job of portraying WLF and Abby and that crew as like, these are the bad guys. Like this is the evildoers of the world. And then I'm excited to see how they kind of play with that as this season and then future seasons go on, because again, the whole Last of Us thing is everyone's good and bad. We are both, two wolves live within both of us, so, or in all of us. So I think that like that is going to be really cool to dive into now that we've seen like they're really going to play into like, oh no, this is the evil force for at least this season. I think that we're going to end this season, they're still going to very much be they're bad, they're evil.
Can I just point out to your point about Vancouver? This is actually the scene that I saw being filmed where I got to like walk down the street that night, and they dressed it with all the abandoned cars. And that was so cool and surreal for me, because we just like watched these tanks and this line of people just walk down the street all day, and now I like finally get to see the fruits of that. So that was very exciting for me. Got a picture with one of those cars on the street. Maybe we'll like put it in the show, I'm not sure. And then the other scene I saw being filmed was also in this episode, which was the abandoned highway where Dina and Ellie are on the horse and they're just navigating through the cars. That was down at UBC, where they like dressed the entire street. I couldn't get very close to that one as much as I tried, but I did see the horse that was Shimmer walking down the street. So I saw a celebrity, basically.
Wow. Incredible.
Yeah. But Daniel, what's your thoughts on the WLF?
Very scary, very intimidating, and I think getting a better glimpse at what's to come. Again, it's that thing that we didn't get to see, that size of them, that force of them on the game side, because we were from Ellie's perspective for a huge chunk of that game. But to see what Ellie's kind of going into is really cool. And to Klein's point as well, we haven't really seen this type of organized force since, the quarantine zones. And even then, Federal was getting their butts kicked sometimes with the Fireflies. So to see this military force that's very tight knit and together, it's really scary. And Ellie has her work cut out for her.
Yeah, I mean, that you said it well, Daniel. Like, she really does, because like in the game, like a lot of the stuff that you come up against, there's a lot of video game logic where it's like, oh yeah, like you could take down a whole army with a pistol, it's fine. But when you put it in a show, it's just going to be interesting to see how they like portray Ellie going up against this, like basically she's going up against the Empire, like with a handgun, which is like, I'm like, good luck, because she's going to need it. But no, I think it's really exciting to like, be building up this kind of really hyper organized force that she's going to have to go up against. And I'm just excited to see how they do it because yeah, the WLF in the game are pretty scary, and they look even scarier in the show. So yeah, it's gonna be cool.
Give me Jeffrey Wright. I can't wait. I'm so excited for more Jeffrey Wright.
Yeah, I think the opportunity to explore the leaders of these factions, like potentially Jeffrey Wright this season, potentially if they go into the Prophet next season, maybe via flashbacks, I think that's really exciting prospect for us because in the game you only ever find out about them in conversations or
Do you
letters.
think
And
that they would
you
have to
see-
wait to next season to do Prophet stuff? Like, I am almost at this point expecting we get some. I think we see a character who is playing the Prophet by the end of this season.
Well, she's dead, so it's going to have to be a flashback.
That's what I mean. We're still. I think we're going to jump back in time and see. We will see. There will be a actor's name beside whatever the Prophet's real name is at the end of one of these episodes.
Could be. Personally, I think they might save that for season 3. If they do the split as I'm predicting they will, but we shall see. I think whoever gets to play the Prophet will be pretty exciting. So, a couple of things I wanted to bring up. One is obviously the major change in this episode that Tommy is not in Seattle now, at least as far as we can tell. This kind of really radically changes some certain things potentially down the line. So my kind of perspective on this, if I have a theory, is that Tommy's role in Seattle will be taken by Jesse. So I think we obviously know Jesse's going to show up based on the trailers. But I guess those moments where maybe Tommy was with the sniper and stuff like that could be taken by Jesse or even Ellie. I'm not really sure. But as for how it goes down later in the show, that could potentially cause problems. Alternatively, I wonder if Tommy does show up, but he's come after them. Because, like you said, Klein, he might be very motivated to protect Ellie in the wake of like Joel's loss. So potentially he's gone after her instead of the other way around. But what do you guys think about them now changing this path for Tommy?
Yeah, the way I saw is that like yeah, Jesse comes after them, and I think what they might do is that Tommy and Jesse potentially come together, because they do kind of have that. They're setting up that kind of camaraderie with them, especially at the beginning of this episode when they're like rebuilding the houses and stuff. So I wonder if they decide like, okay, they've ditched, we're gonna have to go up and get them. Because yeah, like you said, there are some really important scenes, and I don't really want to spoil them if you're listening to this and haven't played the game. With Tommy towards the end of the game that are like very important thematically for the show. And maybe they don't do it the same way because of the way they have portrayed Tommy in the show so far. But at the same time, that like I don't know who you could have as a stand-in otherwise. So yeah, the only way I can see it is if like I said, if Tommy comes along for the ride, basically.
What we said earlier, I think it's the destination is going to be the same, but I think the journey there is going to be different, and I think that's going to apply very much to Jesse and to Tommy's role in Seattle.
I think that Tommy will come, but it's for the reasons that I said earlier. I think that he will be chasing after Ellie and being like, I have to do everything I can to protect her. And then maybe he'll start to show signs of some of the Tommy we see in the games.
Yeah, the way they've set him up, it could be a very different path for him. That's kind of all my points on the episode before we get into our categories. Does anyone else have anything they want to bring up?
I had one little thing is, and I guess like light future spoilers for the game, I guess. I'm interested to see if we come back to this particular group of Seraphites is all I'll say. The way that we come across them at the beginning, we see them and then they're killed off and we see the moments before kind of, I guess they all were murdered. I think that at some other point in this series, in this story, season 3 maybe even, this particular moment, we will be back.
Could be.
Yeah, I can see that.
Same.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how. I still don't know how they're going to do the timeline of this show. So that's like the only thing that kind of holds me back from saying that. But every indication we've gotten so far, I think that I still think they will actually remain pretty faithful with like the main sort of timeline of the game, and that would require returning to a few places.
I do too. I think that, but you wonder because, for continuity reasons, that little girl's not going to look the same in 2 years when they're filming Last of Us season 3, So it could be very difficult, but I see where you're going, like that there are gaps in the timeline that they could potentially come back and fill, and they're laying those seeds now, which would be really cool to see. All right, let's get into categories. So we have 4 categories that we go through each week. Well, 3, and then like predictions, basically. So we'll start with our favorite moment of the episode. Tom, what was your standout moment?
I think it was the jacket scene. It was just so sad. Ellie with Joel's jacket. That whole sequence where she's going through the house, I think, was just so well done. I think Bella did an amazing job. Capturing such subtlety, like when Dina, you hear her voice, and then Ellie has to quickly like mask that she's not been crying. I think I could say like we've all been there, right? It's not just me who's been not wanting to cry in a certain moment. Anyway,
I was there during the episode.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, I just really loved how that was portrayed in the episode. So I think that's my favorite scene.
What about you, Daniel?
That moment for sure. I think Tommy seeing Joel's body and obviously saying like to say hi to Sarah, for me, like how dare you? First of all, how dare you start an episode like that? But also just like getting to Seattle, because that's also one of my favorite sequences in the game. That makes me really excited because I just know what's coming on that side of it. So to see it kind of fully realized in that capacity, it's one of those moments when you're watching the show and you're just like, wow, they did this. They were able to pull this off. They were able to make this exactly how, even though again, there's things that are different, but there's so much that the show gets right. And just from a performance standpoint, from a story standpoint, but just from the visuals, that you're just like, I cannot believe that this show exists. So, yeah, it's kind of the bookends of this episode. It's where it starts off and obviously the ending and the promise of where it's going.
And Klein?
It's the grave scene, like with the sun beating down in that whole graveyard, and I still have a screenshot of Joel's grave from the game the first time playing it, where it's just like I just need to see this, and seeing Ellie kind of like kneeling down beside it, I just thought like the connection that they managed to build between these two characters in what was season 1, 8 episodes, 9 episodes, so like less than 10 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like incredible. Like it really, episode 2, because I wasn't on the show, like it did again feel like losing a family member, and then getting to this grave where it's like there's always that losing the family member, and then there's the putting the grief to rest almost. And that is like what Bella Ramsey was doing there. That's what Ellie was doing there. And it just, I was like, I wrote down when it was happening, I'm like, just give Bella the Emmy now, because she has so many levels in this particular episode. She's literally like screaming, exploding right at the beginning, and then there's like just like so much just like subtle stuff that she does in moments like the grave scene, where it's like, that is, you are channeling some loss there that I cannot even imagine. So I thought that was just like super, super well done. Oh, and the music in that scene too. Are you kidding me? With I think it's the Fireflies song from beginning of Billstown in the first game. Oh man.
Yeah, the score did the most this episode. I like all 3 moments that you all brought up. I think maybe the grave was the standout, just with the coffee beans. I thought it was such a nice touch, but just for the sake of being different, I really did love the WLF scene just because I had been there to see it filmed, so that had like a special place in my heart. Favorite line or performance? I'm going to assume we might all have the same one, but for me, it was definitely Bella. They were just pulling so many different degrees of emotion this episode, and particularly I think the standout moment was when she was walking down the hallway and has gone from being all like up like chipper with Gale to suddenly realizing, oh, she's not over this moment, she's still very much after revenge. And I thought that was such a difficult thing to do in just like your face, but Bella did it, so I thought that was great. Also, but I also love the line that Tommy had, which was, yeah, give Sarah my love. Like, you're very right, Daniel. How dare they do that to us? But yeah.
Yeah.
Tom, what do you think? Favorite performance?
Yeah, I think it probably is Bella. Just not to steal Klein's point, but like the range they have like throughout the episode in terms of just like emotionally where Ellie is, just captured super well. And again, like the chemistry between Ellie and Dean in the show is incredible to watch. So yeah, I loved Bella in this episode. Really good stuff.
Daniel, do you agree?
Yeah, Bella is incredible. They have been, you know, incredible throughout this entire series, but I think this episode, even though this is a transitional episode, they had so much to balance, from grief to anger to uh, a little bit of hope at the hearing. So to see all of that balanced is incredible. I also want to give a shout out to young Mazzino, who plays Jesse, who has some really great moments in this. And I think in these first three episodes has really embodied who that character is. But um, just the scene with Jesse and Ellie, and Jesse telling Ellie, like, listen, write your thoughts down. It comes from a place of this person cares about Ellie a lot, and I think it was a great performance in that moment there.
Actually, something I forgot to bring up that I do want to get you guys' take on is that conversation between Ellie and Dina in the tent where they're like, do you think Jesse is sad? I thought this was an interesting direction to go in. And I'm still unclear as to why they had this conversation. Does anyone have any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not too sure because everything I've seen of Jesse seems like a chipper guy, but maybe there is like some kind of some sadness that will to his character that we'll delve a bit more into as the show goes on. But yeah, it's an interesting. I think it was more so reflective of kind of where Dina's headspace at was at potentially
Sure.
of her kind of self doubt and um potentially self esteem issues. But yeah, I wonder if we'll get a bit more of that exploration as the show goes on.
Do you think it might have something to do with another plot beat that we will get to with Dina and Jesse, like, going forward? Like, is there something else kind of there that she is not 100% letting on to Ellie at this point, but is that this is how she's expressing it? And is it sadness as much as it's like, I mean, she says, "Is he sad?" But like, almost like I get like a weird like insecurity from Jesse, and did in the game as well. Like it's like this like self doubt,
Mm,
like unsure of himself a little bit, and I think that could come off as like sad to her.
possibly. I feel like the plot point you're referring to, I don't think she knows that yet. Maybe she does by the end of the episode, but I think maybe she's suspecting during this conversation. But yeah, you're probably right, Tom. That is a bit of an insecurity, perhaps. And then maybe she's questioning whether, will she now make Ellie sad? I don't know. But yeah, any thoughts, Daniel?
Yeah, it's interesting, but I also think it's maybe Dina coming from a place of like, hey, this is a person I was in a relationship with, and now we're not in a relationship, so maybe she's just like having these thoughts of like, oh, like, how is he dealing with this, right? Because we're also not getting too much time spent on Jesse, and we get obviously time with him in the games, but not as much as we like to really kind of dive into his emotions. But maybe it's just that post breakup that she's just like, oh, maybe hopefully he's okay. Do you think he's sad because we're not together anymore?
Mm, yeah, fair enough. Hopefully, we'll find out. Does anyone have a favorite game Easter egg from this episode?
Yeah, I think mine was the ending song, the credits song, which is "The Path: A New Beginning." Just
In
is my
it,
favorite track
it's
from
not
the
it's
game.
not just the Path of New Beginning, Tom. It's the Path of New Beginning in the sickest electric guitar
Yeah,
rendition I've ever heard. Like it is so cool.
it's crazy. It sounds amazing, and I can't believe they did it in this way. But yeah, it's like that's the song. If you don't know, that plays at the very end of the first game. After you hear Joel lies to Ellie basically, and Ellie accepts it. And that's the song that plays. And it still hits like when they used it in this episode, and in a new context as well. So yeah, I really like that they included that in the credits here.
One that stands out to me is this is one that I will not take credit for being the smart, but I did see it on the socials. Is that there's been like a dinosaur in every episode, so far, almost like a
Oh,
secret
Oh, that's
dinosaur in
fair.
every episode. So in the first episode, Tommy's kid has a bunch of dinosaurs on his sweater. And then in the second episode, in the cabin with Abby and where everything's going down, there's like a dinosaur figurine on one of the plants. And then in this episode, there's when we're in Ellie's room, there's like a dinosaur like little toy on her desk. And obviously, for those of us who've played the game, will know the significance of how much like Ellie like loves dinosaurs and these creatures and where we visit somewhere in the game. But it's been cool to see that they're planting these little seeds, and I'm curious if there's going to be a hidden dinosaur in every episode now.
That's so cool. I'm going to be looking out for that now. Like,
Yeah,
props to the art department. They're doing like good work.
yeah.
That's crazy. That's wild. What about you, Glenn? Anything?
the only like I wouldn't even call it a video game Easter egg, but the walking through the house after like right at the beginning, walking through Joel's house and like smelling the jacket and stuff. That's one of my favorite moments in the game is like it's building for the first 3 hours of the game or whatever up until Joel's death of just like getting amped up, amped up, amped up, and then that walk through the house is almost just like this pressure release.
Mhm.
And you do a lot of just like walking through houses in The Last of Us, and it's like
Mm.
picking up stuff. And then in the game, you get to the bedroom and you open it up, and it's the watch. And I think that to me was really well done. Also, shout out the Matrix poster in Ellie's room.
Yeah,
Like
Right?
so cool.
I immediately called that out. Was like, oh my god, like the world really did end in 2003. Like this was
It's so funny. But it's cool that it was a
Elia's
red
taste.
box too, right? Like
Oh, yeah.
again, it's like it's like almost like shot for shot, like the blocking of it was like, oh, like that behind over Ellie's shoulder, and it's like it's the red box on the bed. I'm like, oh, like they went for those game right details that have just been it's so cool. I love when they do that.
Was really good. I have a different one because we kind of got a workbench in this episode where Ellie was prepping the pistol
Yep.
at
Yeah.
her workbench, and I was like, workbenches, shout out. So that was cool. And then lastly, any predictions for next week? I was very off target last week when I thought that we were getting Eugene this episode. That didn't happen. I just assumed because Peter Horse like done the flashback heavy episode, or sorry, not the flashback, but like he's always been brought in, I feel like, for the episodes that diverge the most from the game. It seems like season 1 episode 3 was like Bill and Frank. That obviously changed a lot. This is definitely another instance of that where they like filled in a gap and changed certain things. So I was like, this is where we're going to find out about Eugene, but now I suspect that's probably going to be like in episode 6. So don't trust me on predicting anything at this point. Also, Daniel, I'm not sure if did you see the entire season in screeners, or have you just been watching week to week?
I have seen the entire season, so there's been some
Okay.
questions that you guys will ask me. I'm like, yes, of course, whatever
Okay.
you say. Yeah.
All right, we won't ask you about this one then.
No worries. I have nothing to say.
Okay, great. You know nothing. Tom, any thoughts?
Well,
Any predictions?
the preview shows a
Hmm.
bit of Isaac, Jeffrey Wright's Isaac, so we will be getting him next episode. Interesting, he's in some Fedra getup, which I thought was kind of interesting.
He looks
so,
younger in the Fedra getup too. I think we're gonna get some
Yeah.
like Isaac
facial
maybe
hair.
origin stuff.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be really fascinating because I love Isaac in the game, but you don't like get loads of him, and it'll be really interesting to see like a lot more of him here. So that's my big one. I think also I was reading like an interview today. I can't remember who it was from the team, but they were teasing that they were talking about the last episode, Joel's death scene, and how it was the most emotional scene that they shot. But then they stopped themselves and said, okay, maybe the second most emotional scene from the show. So I don't know if that's going to become the next episode. And I don't really
Who was
know what
saying
that
that?
can refer to. I think it was.
It
It
was
might have been
amazing.
Craig.
It was Craig,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I just question what that could be. The only thing I could think of is the museum. I don't think I would get the museum next week. But
No.
I don't know. That's the only thing that I've got.
Wait, so he
predicted,
said
really.
it's happening next episode, did he?
No, he just
In
said like
episode 4?
it's coming up in this season. So
Oh, I think that was probably Ellie with the jacket.
you think?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it
Because
might be
Bella's
something
even
else.
said how difficult that scene was for them to film because they find it really hard to cry on camera. So I think
Oh, interesting.
that ultimately, that's my theory. Could be wrong.
Okay, could be.
I've been wrong before.
If you want to hear like specific predictions to that note, you can head over to the direct.com and read the article that I just wrote this morning because I addressed that exact topic with that exact quote. I think predictions for next week, and I saw it in the promo. I just can't wait for the music store. It's my favorite, one of my favorite moments of The Last of Us Part 2 because I really like the dance. But like the fact that it's optional in that game and it's just like so emotionally effective, and I think that's when we cement this Dina Ellie relationship, at least on Dina's side of things, where she really like the any illusion that she's holding up that she doesn't have feelings is going to just completely disappear. And so I'm really looking forward to that. And more Jeffrey Wright. He's going to be terrifying and awful and just ruthless, but I am kind of looking forward to seeing that.
The one thing I will say about next week's episode is that it's directed by Kate Herron, who was the director for Loki season 1. She's wonderful. And yeah, I'm excited to hear all of your thoughts on it.
All right, good tease. Yeah, I think I'm like based on the preview. I think we're like Dina's going to find out about Ellie's immunity next episode, and then as for how far it might get in, hard to say because really everything's up in the air at this point. But maybe to Jesse's arrival, if they go to the theater,
Okay.
could be where they cut it, but all will be revealed.
There's not
So
many
that's
episodes left, which is like
Yeah.
scary to
no,
me.
we're nearly there. We're like halfway pretty much next week, which is sad. But yeah, that's our thoughts on episode 3.
Excellent. If you want to let us know what you thought about episode 3, you can totally do so over on social media. Sound off in the YouTube comments. You can also tell us what you have been playing. So we'll jump out of Cordyceps Club, do a quick check-in on what we've been playing over the last little while, and then we'll get out of here. Daniel, we're going to go to you first because you, my friend, have touched it. You have held the Holy Grail. You have sipped from the pool of eternal life that is the Nintendo Switch 2. My friend, how did this happen? What's going on? And yeah, if you're watching a YouTube video, very all show, very secretly in the back, Daniel's had a Nintendo Switch 2 bag behind him that I've been really jealous of.
There's one in there as well too that I smuggled out of there. I wish. It felt amazing. It was very cool. That was like one of the coolest emails we got. Just like, hey, do you want to come check this out? And we're like, yes, please. And it was literally the day after we got back from Japan. So literally all of my footage from there is just like the most egregious eye bags underneath my eyeballs. But I got a chance to play Mario Kart Worlds and Donkey Kong Bonanza and a bunch of just random Switch 2 games. And obviously I made a beeline to the GameCube backwards compatibility, like to the NSO GameCube, and played Mario Strikers and had a blast. It was it feels awesome. As someone who's put like 1,000,000 hours into my Switch, I was worried that the bigger screen size was going to feel like a little jarring to hold, but it actually felt great. It looked great. I have an OLED Switch, so it was another thing. I'm like, oh, I hope the screen looks great, but it looks great. The colors are very vibrant on it. It didn't feel like a step down at all, which is like, thank God. But I just spent a lot of time just jumping around different game kiosks to see what was there and to see like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom in 4K and 60 frames was just like melted my brain because of how good it looks. It looks like it's deceivingly how good it looks. And I'm like, it shouldn't look this good, even though they're beautiful looking games on the Switch. But when you see them in like that high frame rate and that kind of like that the vibrance and the HDR and everything, you're like, this feels wrong. This feels like I'm watching like some mod on YouTube right now of somebody playing it on PC. But it was great. Honestly, I had a blast. They had to like pull me out of there because I could have easily spent all day in there playing the Switch 2. But I'm just very excited for June 5th. I was lucky to get a pre-order, and I didn't have to sell any like organs or like blood to get one. So we'll see to afford games down the road. But I was it was a really cool experience.
What was your highlight game-wise of anything you played there? Of course, the GameCube lineup is very exciting, but Mario Kart,
Honestly,
Donkey Kong, Metroid, where were we at?
Metroid, we got to play with in the mouse mode, but also the nice thing about mouse mode is you could just pick up the Joy Cons and play with the both Joy Cons in your hand, and it felt very much like playing it on the Wii, like playing Metroid back on the Wii, because it's like, oh, I'm holding these two controllers. Metroid looks beautiful, and we didn't get to play too much. You basically were going through a bit of the demo that we saw at um, the Nintendo's Direct in June of last year, where like, hey, like here's this corridor, we're going down there, and then we have a boss fight, which was a really long boss fight because you're just kind of trying to hit these targets on this big alien creature. But surprised how well the mouse mode works. I'm not someone who plays games at my desk. I'm always sitting on my couch, so I don't know if I'll use mouse mode that often. But Metroid was really impressive. I think the GameCube games look great. I think they're upscaled to like 900p, but they're also just very bright and vibrant. And a bunch of GameCube games also support widescreen mode. So the Soul Calibur 2, we turned it on. Mario Strikers had it, and F-Zero had it. Unfortunately, Wind Waker did not have the widescreen support back then, so they didn't retroactively add it now. But they all looked great. I think it's just some of the text looks a little weird sometimes on it. Like, I think that's just one of the things of emulating an old system, but the actual fidelity of the graphics, everything looked sharp and bright, and it was awesome. It was just really, really cool, and I'm just so glad that it's not that long of a wait to jump into it. But yeah, I was just really pleasantly surprised.
Only a few short weeks. It's going to be very exciting. Do you have anything else that you've been playing? You said you've been traveling a lot, so I'm sure it's just been switch, switch, switch. So yeah, run through
Yeah,
what else has been going on.
I've been I was in a very big Pokemon mode the last couple weeks, just from traveling and visiting Pokemon centers and spending too much money on plush Pokemon. I have a giant Snorlax and
Oh
a
my god.
sleeping Pikachu in the corner of my room right now.
Hell yeah.
But so I was just like, oh, like I'm gonna open up Let's Go Pikachu because I haven't played it in years, and I haven't picked up Pokemon Legends or any of the other Switch Pokemon game. But maybe with ZA coming out in the fall, or is it ZA? Is ZA? We're Canadian, so we'll say ZA.
It's ZA
Um,
here.
is ZA, right? So I'm definitely excited to jump into that in the fall. And but yeah, I was playing Let's Go Pikachu and just kind of getting lost in that for hours because as you guys know, Australia is a very far place to travel to, and
I've heard.
it was a long time on the plane, and so was Japan. So I was like, let me just put my Switch to work. So I was just kind of bouncing around. I think every single game that I owned and just playing for at least a little bit here and there and everything. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Excellent. Tom, you have some exciting video game stuff going on in your life. What's going on? And what's happening? I saw photos on Instagram and I was like, what? Oh yeah, Tom is doing this. So what's happening? What's going on?
Yeah, well, before we get to that, I want to address something first because I have righted a wrong. Because last month we did a new game plus, and famously, I was supposed to play Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. I only played like half of it. I think realized when I was getting through this game that like, oh yeah, I really did not play as much as I should have. But I'm pleased to say I did finish it this week, and game's good. Game's really really good, and it gets better than what I thought it was going to be. From when I played up to the boss fights, they're difficult as hell, but they're so much fun when you get to like the final ones. I think the story was like one of my big gripes with it, but I think it comes a bit more together as you go through the game. I really appreciated that. So yeah, like I was just enamored with it, and I'm sad we're not going to get a sequel like anytime soon because that studio's gone. But yeah, so that was a lot of fun. But yeah, like you teed up, the main thing that I did this weekend is that I attended PlayStation the concert, which was basically like an orchestra plus a couple other different instruments that aren't typically part of an orchestra, playing a lot of iconic music from PlayStation franchises. So they advertised it initially as being music from The Last of Us, God of War, Horizon, and Ghost of Tsushima. And they teased like, oh well, like yeah, there's going to be a few surprises in there as well. And I was expecting like, okay, maybe there'll be like a medley of like a handful of PlayStation tracks here and there. But I'm pleased to say they really like went all out with it. They had some really like dedicated moments to a lot of like iconic franchises. Obviously, those ones that I mentioned, but they had Uncharted, and they played the Uncharted theme at the live auction. It sounded incredible. They had Helldivers 2 showing up as
Nice.
well.
So good.
They had like what was the other big one? They had Bloodborne. They had the big one that I really wanted to see, Astrobot, like, and playing the Astrobot theme, and they're going, "I am Astrobot," and all this stuff. And I thought it was just, it was
Were people
genuinely
singing along to
incredible.
the Astrobot theme?
They weren't, but they were hyped when he came on screen. I will say as well that prior to the God of War section starting up, they like introed each section of the concert. And so they had a guy like, you know, kind of talking through like the significance of the games and all this stuff. But before we could even get through like him talking, the crowd just started chanting "boy, boy, boy, boy," and he had already like had a joke about that in his speech. So he clearly was like, "Oh man, they beat me to the punch," sort of thing, because he already had like, he's already building up to a boy joke. But God, it was so much fun. I have to say that the Last of Us section probably was. We talked a lot of Last of Us this episode, but the Last of Us section was just incredible. I had chills like the entire time. The Path: A New Beginning, like I mentioned, my favorite song in the franchise. They played that song. It was amazing. They played a lot of the other tracks from the game. They played little Sadie from the dance sequence from part 2, which was wasn't expecting, and they had a vocalist singing, and that sounded incredible. So yeah, just really cool time. If you have the opportunity to go to this, I think they're still touring around places at the moment. The show that I went to, it was pretty packed, but it wasn't sold out. So like, even if you see it and it's coming, like, check tickets, because it's well worth going to. I had a lot of fun.
Excellent, Lauren. What have you been playing? I see little South of Midnight. How is it? How are things?
Yeah. So I've dropped the PlayStation for a minute, apart from The Last of Us Part 2, which, yes, I've played up until the point that we're up to in the show. And on the Xbox again, so I've been playing South of Midnight, which we've talked about, I think, at length in like some of our predictions, our fantasy critical, this and that. I was quite excited for this. It's from Compulsion Games, who are, I think, Canadian. And they previously did We Happy Few, which was a game that I liked but never really got too far into. And so this, I was quite excited to see them do like a third person kind of action adventure game with like magic and cool gothic, the southern lore and this and that. And it's pretty good. I'm enjoying it. I'm about, I don't know, a third of the way through. I'm enjoying definitely the traversal. Like, your character Hazel has these cool things she can do with weaves, which are kind of like spiritual magic. And so like, and also kind of similar to, I guess, what's the game that it's similar to? I don't know, but you can like basically slingshot yourself across like through trees and stuff. And also have like a paraglider thing. So that's really fun. Moving around is really great. The combat, I'm struggling with a little bit, just because it's quite difficult or quite repetitive. A lot of the segments where you're facing enemies are just like, I'm in an arena, I'm facing some enemies, I cleared them out, let's move on. So that feels very like PS3 era. And I'm hoping that they shift that up a little bit more as I'm going. But so far, the story is really cool, and the music is unreal. Like, the original songs that they've done for this game, you can like go listen to the soundtrack on YouTube or Spotify and stuff, but they really tie into whatever quest you're doing. And they have these choirs sort of basically singing the songs of what you're doing, and that is really, really cool. So definitely going to continue with it, but hoping for a bit more variation as I continue. And then the only other thing I wanted to bring up, which we can possibly talk about on another episode, but has anyone seen Until Dawn, the movie, yet?
I have not
yet.
seen it yet.
Not yet.
Okay. Maybe I'll save this conversation for future, because I have seen it and I have thoughts.
Okay.
Okay,
Well, we can
nice
get to
tee
it.
up. Yeah, for sure. We'll definitely talk about that in the next couple of weeks. Gaming wise, I haven't been actually playing a ton. I'm writing a sin just like Tom did this week. I've never played Shovel Knight, and I love platformers, and I love games of that like vibe. And so this week I had my Switch with me. We were away from the house, and I'm just like, I want something to play. And the Treasure Trove was on sale for like $11. And I
Wow.
said, okay, let's do it. So I hit download. I knew I was going to adore it. Like, it's just the vibe is so good. The music's amazing. The character designs, the platforming, so much fun. It is quite difficult to like figure out the rhythm of the game. At first, I was really trying to play it. Like, I'm like, there's no run button. Where's my Mario run? But it's not. It's way more like Mega Man. And so you're trying to a lot more combat. I find like the pogo move that he does, you really just want to be doing that. You don't actually want to be like hitting people with the shovel on the ground. You want to be in the air bouncing on people. I'm really enjoying it. I'm loving it a lot. And while I was away, I secured a Switch 2 pre-order. I did it. I braved the
Hell yeah.
wilds. I was down. Oh man, it was a day. I had all the alerts written down, ready to go. I knew where it was going to be. I was like, okay, here's the tier list of where I could get them based on time. And then I'm sitting in my in-laws' living room and I'm on Twitter. If you're Canadian, by the way, if you're Canadian and you want to switch to L Babbins, Twitter,
The
Blue
best.
Sky, the homie. He is the dude. He has gotten me a PS5. He has gotten me a Switch 2. He is the man. And I see him go, Costco pre-orders are now up. Costco wasn't even on my list. I run into the other room going, does anyone have a Costco card? My father-in-law says, yep, gives me the Costco card. And then I get in my cart. I hit buy. Nothing happens. Goes to a blank screen. Hit buy again. Nothing happens. The link, the buy button on the Costco, they have since rectified this, on the Costco pre-order page, didn't lead anywhere. It was
That's
a
always
dead
good.
link.
No.
I was pressing
what are
it
you
for
doing?
90 minutes, just like sitting waiting. And then Gabby's like, hey, Klein, we're going to Boston Pizza to meet some like other family members. Are you going to come? I'm like, yeah, but I'm going to have my phone out the entire time. Got on the Walmart app, secured a pre-order with Walmart. We got the Mario Kart bundle. It's coming.
Nice.
It says it should be here June 11th at the absolute latest. I hope it's not that late. I hope it's launch day.
I think
But
you'll get it launch day. Walmart's usually pretty good with pre-orders for launch.
I cannot tell you. I thought I was going to have a cardiac event. It was
Oh my
when the
gosh.
Costco link did not go anywhere. I was almost in tears. I was like, there's no way this
Yeah.
is happening right now, because it was so easy. I just,
Yeah.
dude, add to cart, boom, credit card information, boom, confirm purchase, nothing.
It's I think it's better that you didn't, because Costco canceled a bunch of
I
pre-orders
heard.
afterwards. So it's
Oh.
probably best you didn't. I was literally trying as well, while I was in Japan, trying to purchase it from Walmart's website with no luck. But weirdly, the day after pre-orders, EB Games or GameStop, they call them now, put out, it's always going to be EB Games in my head. Like, I will never call it anything else. They have a website where they show what stores have pre-orders available still. So I just looked
cool.
up for my local one, and I'm like, it says available as of 30 minutes ago. So I'm like, I'm just gonna, literally was right after the Switch event. I'm like, let me go try. So I just drove up. I'm like, hey, can I pre-order the Switch bundle? And they're like, yeah, sure. I'm like, okay.
Old
Sure.
school.
So I have it, and they're like, and we're doing a midnight launch. So I'm like, okay, we're back in 2006. Amazing. I'll be there. I will be there at midnight to pick this up. I'm so
That's
down.
so funny.
Everyone was laughing at me at this table at this Boston Pizza in Northern Alberta. We're all sitting there, and I have my phone open, and they're like, did you get it? And I was like, no, but I got a memory card, because the memory card pre-orders went up before the Walmart console pre-orders went up. Like, I'm going to have 256 gigs of memory ready to go on day one. I don't know why. I was just like, I need my credit card I need something right now. I need some sort of W. And that was the memory card was it. I wasn't spending $120 on a controller, so instead I spent $90 on a memory card. The console is coming.
Console.
I'm so glad I didn't go through this.
It's an ordeal. It's an ordeal for all of us.
I'm so excited. It's so close. And you know what? People in the industry, they might scoff at me for this. I love that it's coming out the weekend of Summer Games Fest. Sure, it's going to be a busy as hell weekend, and we're all going to be typing away, podcasting, doing videos, doing live streams, and I'm going to have a new console to talk about. This is the best. I can't wait. This is Video Game Christmas, June 6th. It can't come soon enough. that's going to basically do it for this episode of Controller Club. If you want to shout out, if you want to chime in on anything we talked about today, Last of Us, what we've been playing, you can also let us know what you thought about The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 3. Please do so. Follow the show at Controller Club Pod on Instagram and Blue Sky, at Controller_Club on Twitter, and at Controller.Club on TikTok. Also, if you are listening to the podcast, we are now a video podcast as well. So you can head on over to YouTube, subscribe, like, leave a comment over there, and you can see all of our beautiful faces, including Daniel's. Daniel has had, was it Ryan Reynolds or Hugh Jackman called your eyes the most beautiful eyes in the business?
Ryan Reynolds.
If you want to see those, eyes, okay, they are dreamy. Head on over to YouTube and take a look. Also, please rate, review us wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps out. Daniel, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. Love to have you back. Where can people keep up with you? What do you have going on in your life? We're rolling out the red carpet for you, so let them know.
You could follow me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Letterboxd, wherever you are. You could follow at DBAPS or at the Movie Podcast. That is the show that I host alongside my lovely friends Anthony and Shabazz. We have a lot of really cool episodes coming your way. We have some interviews for the Thunderbolts happening, and for our review of the Thunderbolts, which is going to be out probably by the time you watch or listen to this, so look out for that. And we have some other cool stuff happening in May, so stay tuned. Again, wherever you are on socials, the Movie Podcast or DBAPS, that's your best place to go.
Movie Podcast, you got to check him out there. The globetrotting Canadian success story. Love having you on. Got to have the whole crew on at some point. As
we'd love to be here. We'd love to
head
be
through
here.
Last of Us Season 2 and beyond. Switch 2 is going to come out. I'm sure Shabazz will want to come on here and talk about Mario Kart as he does.
He did. He came in first too in Knockout Tour. So
I saw that. I saw that he was showing people up at the Nintendo Switch 2 event.
I was literally in first, like the entire race, and then I got one blue shell, and then 30 people passed me, or
it's
like
the rules.
10 people passed me, so I got knocked out. But Shay, he had the Movie Podcast flag waving the entire time, so it's good. Can't complain.
I'm sure he hasn't just rubbed that in your face in the days since.
Did he play as the cow?
He did play as the cow.
He won his cow.
That's the winning.
Cow confirmed overpowered. Here we go.
That's it. That's exactly it.
Tom, what do you got going on in your life, and where can people find it?
Yeah, you can find me at Tom Drouart, Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitter, basically everywhere. Not got much going on other than the concert. I posted a video of the performance of the Astrobot theme on my Blue Sky. So if you want to see that, get a taste of it, and then potentially look for tickets in your area, check it out, Tom Drouart.
We'll also be putting that on Instagram for Control Club, so keep an eye out.
There you go.
Yes, we will. Lauren Rouse, where can people keep up with you online?
You can follow me at lrouse19, Rouse is in house, on Twitter, Blue Sky, TikTok. I will shout out that I've got a new piece of work up with a new outlet this week. The outlet is called Pelaplat. They started in Latin America, and they've now opened a North American office in Vancouver, of all places. And it's basically kind of a space for film lovers to come and share their passions about film and TV, write essays, comment on each other's stuff. Kind of like, I would say, like a letterbox, but for essays about opinions on film and TV. And so I've been doing some stuff with them, and I published my first article this week about Sinners. So if you go over to Pelaplat under the critics section, you'll find it there. And I'll have some more stuff up with them in the next few months.
Amazing.
I got to head over there and see. I loved Sinners. I saw that last week, and it was amazing.
I have tickets finally to watch it.
Have you not seen it yet?
No, I wasn't playing anywhere I was at. So I'm
Daniel, you host the Movie Podcast.
I know. And I'm seeing it. I have tickets to watch it on Wednesday, so I will read your lovely essay this week, Lauren. I promise.
Thank you.
You're going to love it.
Keep up with me everywhere. I'm at the Kleinfeld, Blue Sky, Instagram, Twitter. That's going to wrap up this episode of Controller Club. As always, thank you so much for listening. Now, let's get gaming.